Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 1 of Spice Computers. In this episode, we'll define what a computer is and the common parts of your common desktop PC. What is a computer? A computer, you might ask yourself, well, what do you think a computer is? You might think a computer is the desktop, which is what I'm recording my computer at. You might also think a computer can be a laptop. But do you ever think that a computer is a gaming console, a smartphone, a tablet, or any other device that's computer that can process data? Because according to Technopedia, defines a computer is a machine or device that performs processes, calculations, and operations based on instructions provided by a software or hardware program. It has the ability to accept data, input, process it, and then produce outputs. So, anything that can accept data, process it, and produce outputs according to a program is a computer. And it's usually it's always a machine or device. And the instructions perform calculations and process and operations. Thus, desktops, laptops, gaming consoles, smartphones, tablets, and other devices can be considered as computers, including devices that are in so-called Internet of Things. Things like smart fridges, smart thermostats, things that you wouldn't consider to be computers are actually computers because they have a hardware program. They can accept data, which is called input, and they process it and they produce an output. So let's look at the common parts of a desktop computer. And we'll start, I'm going to start with the external devices. External devices are devices which are outside of the case. They come in two ways. Input. Those are things where you can put data into a computer to be processed. Input includes things like keyboards, mice, joysticks, game controllers, which I have one right here, which I also was the famous Wii controller and Wii U controller. Touch devices, scanners. You've seen computers in stores, so you know, like at the checkout. So computers, and you've seen that they have scanners, which scan the barcode. Say on the back of a book, for example. That's how they get the data quickly into the computer, so you know what things you're purchasing. Basically, an input device is any device that you can use to input a device. That includes a microphone, a webcam, things of that nature. Output is, there are three main outputs for a computer. Monitors, which is what you see visual displays. Speakers. I don't have any speakers here because, well, one of my displays has the speakers built in. And printers. I use a printer over there to print stuff out all the time. Those are common output things of parts of external output devices of a computer. Oh, and for TVs, you consider the remote as an input device too, because smart TVs also exist. Don't forget. And there's dual mode devices such as touchscreens, KVM switches, smart TVs. Those things are both input and output devices. Like a touchscreen, for example, not only does it allow you to input and manipulate the data that's on the screen, you can also see the results of that thing on that same screen. Unlike, say, a writing pad, which is only an input device, or a monitor, which is an output device. Now let's talk about the internal devices that are inside a common desktop computer. We have the thing that holds all the parts, all the other parts in a computer is the case. I won't get into too detailed into any of these parts here because, well, we have quite a few parts to go over. So, but basically know that a case is the thing that keeps all the internal parts safe from dust and usually keeps them together, lets them to stay together and locked down. Then we have the power supply, which regulates the power that flows into the other parts of the computer. Usually some external display devices have their own power supplies, but usually the power supply gives the power to all the other parts that are internal to the computer. Sometimes it also gives power to USB devices. Then we have the motherboard. Without the motherboard can control a lot of it, because the motherboard has the chips, and it also determines what RAM you can use, like for example, what processor you can use. Depending on what motherboard you get, determines what type of processor you get. Because, for example, Intel and AMD have separate chipsets. If you get a motherboard that's designed to work with an Intel processor, you can't use it with an AMD processor, and vice versa. And if your motherboard supports and also determines what type of memory you can use. Is it DDR, DDR2, DDR3, DDR4? I'll explain more about what the DDR means and how DDR works in a future episode, but just know that that memory loses its it loses the information in it when the power is turned off. But our motherboard also can determine what expansion cards you can use by the type of expansion slots it has and how many expansion slots it has. Also, the motherboard can be determined by your case, because not all cases can support all motherboards. Also, the motherboard has ports on it, which lets you plug in external devices, both the input and output devices into it. But also, the expansion cards can determine it. Like, say, what graphics card are you using? That can determine what type of monitor you need to use. Storage. Storage is what I refer to as your hard disk drives, but since there's also solid state drives out there, that also is storage. Storage does not refer to disk drives, but by disk drives I mean things like CD drives, DVD drives, Blu-ray drives. And there used to be disk drives, zip drives, but we'll get more into that when we get into our video on storage. But basically, these are all the common parts of a computer. Now, let's summarize what we've learned in this episode. We learned what a computer is. We learned that a computer is a machine or device which takes input, processes it according to a hardware or software program, and then outputs that device out the results. And it usually has a hardware or software program which tells it how to process the data that's being input into the computer into it. We learned that computers have internal and external components. And we also learned we also learned a bit about these components. But in the weeks coming up, because this will be a weekly series, we'll learn more about each of those components. Like next week, I'm going to cover external devices, both input and output. So hopefully you guys will come back for that. But and in the weeks following, we'll learn more about each of those devices. We'll also learn more about the software too, like the operating system. So if you really enjoy this, please thank you so much for watching, and consider supporting this new series and the accompanying website at patreon.com/ScreenAnalyzeToday, because there will be a website in the future for you to visit, and it'll be at swagscomputers.com. I'm still in the process of setting up. I'll probably announce it on my vlog when it's ready for you guys to view. But you might want to bookmark swagscomputers.com if you're interested in computers, because it's going to be an awesome site, I promise you guys. And these videos will also be shared to that website. Until next time, though, folks, my name is Nathan, aka ScreenAnalyze, and I'll see you next time. Farewell, goodbye, and God bless.